The first project we have is Delta Lives, Preeta and Barnamala. I will keep the time, 5 minutes to talk, and I will probably shamelessly interrupt you if you go over.
I had a question.
Sure.
Before we start. So do we need to have the introductions outside of the pitching time?
Introductions of yourselves?
To the collaborators
Yeah.
and ourselves?
Because that is taking up a little bit of time and we would like to really give time to the pitch.
So I don't think you need to tell, you just need to say who are the collaborators, right? So what are you thinking of in terms of an introduction?
Oh,
like our backgrounds and where we come from, like maybe what we do, like 1 or 2 lines. Do we need to tell that or do we kind of get into the project?
Yeah, 1 or 2 lines might be okay. I don't go into details of who you are, but more like I'm Barnamala, I'm an XYZ, and I am in this project to do this, like, just really quickly. You could even do it at the end of the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that you have a sense of what your project is. And then you say, for this project, these are the components that each of these different people are doing.
That would be nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
That would be nice. Thank you.
So I'll just share my screen. While Barnamala talks, I'll be sharing the screen. I hope you guys can see this. Right?
So just let me know when I start, then I will start.
Start.
Hi, Pritha and Varnamala here. We bring to you Delta Lives, our multimodal interdisciplinary project. We are envisioning and realizing this as an interactive web platform. Through Delta Lives, we address social and gender justice in marginalized and ecologically fragile communities whose cultural identities and practices are drowned by mainstream media narratives. Mainstream media either generate urgent call to action narratives of these people or present the communities as exotic extensions of the landscape. Our goal is to shift this narrative to familiarize and connect the communities with the outside world. Delta Life starts from the forest islands of the Sundarbans and is suited for access on low-cost mobile phones in low bandwidth areas. And why the Sundarbans? It is because we have grown up about 70 kilometers away from these islands. We share their native tongue. We have worked with these people for years and we connect visually with them. Let me now introduce you to Shushila Mondol, who is a resident of Bali Islands and whom we have met frequently. She loves mathematics and athletics, and she used to be a high achiever in this while in school. However, she couldn't pursue either because she was married off in 8th grade and had to drop out of school. We were happy to have her on board as a participant of our project because she is still so enthusiastic about pursuing these passions. Now, where does Shushila live? She lives in the Bali Islands of the Sundarbans, which have been facing increasingly devastating climate disasters through 2020 and 2021. Cyclone Amphan wrecked their lives in 2020. Yas did the same in 2021. In 2021, they suffered the most severe monsoon in their lifetimes. Because they live in such an ecologically fragile and isolated place, women like Shushila cannot cultivate their creative, cultural, or occupational identities. They're bound to their daily struggles for survival, to season-specific occupations like farming, fishing, etc. One of the inevitable outcomes of this is that when the Sundarbans people have to migrate, which they already seasonally do, they cannot integrate within the mainstream society with dignity. They cannot rely on their traditional knowledge system and their artistic skills to find a living outside the Sundarbans because these knowledges and skills aren't recognized as such. So they have to do odd jobs to earn their daily wages. This is unfortunate because if their artistic and creative talents and their cultural identities are properly nurtured and given a space to flourish, they can be turned into stable professions.
So what do we do to address this concern? We intervene at infrastructural and narrative levels. So we provide them access to technology through mobile phones, and we also provide training to them to navigate the digital spaces, to cultivate their individual artistic expressions using workshops and active engagement. At the narrative level, we help co-create a space to tell their stories through their unique artistic expressions and also facilitate connections with other communities globally so they can break out of the isolation. We do so by co-developing an open source web platform. Now, our goals during the C3 with our collaborators is to co-design and develop and initiate the development of the platform and also form the documentation and the framework for sharing these methodologies of engagement and involving contributors across local and global communities. So how does this platform manifest? We think of it to be based on an interactive 3D social network map. The interactive nodes can represent individuals or communities, and the nodes can lead to pages with multimedia elements, which we co-create with the communities. They can be participatory videos, audio stories, anything that tells their narratives. And the elements, visual elements of this network, like the nodes and the edges, can be customizable to be informed by the unique ecological ethos, which is again co-created with the community members. And how does this platform manifest as a result? As an artistic rendering of an interactive 3D social network map, which is informed by and representative of the local ethos, so that it can be navigated to explore the place and its people from a unique perspective, informed by the indigenous and local imagination and creativity. And we achieve this with the help of our collaborators, Chadirhat, in community engagements through arts. With Vinu, we develop methods to form these conversational frameworks. Niti is helping us co-design the platform, and Mihir is helping us manifest the digital framework of Delta Lives itself. And we envision this to be accessible within as well as outside the communities. We want the locals to be the main contributors, add to the nodes, expand to it. And we want others to be able to readapt this across context, communities, and locations, across languages, and also build a bridge between the offline and the online through QR codes and other methods. And some other communities who are engaging with our project and are interested in adapting this once we develop it are, on this page, local as well as some global organizations. I would now like to give it to Mihir to speak a little bit about the feasibility of this project in the context of C3. Mihir?
Hi. Okay.
I think we are on time.
We're out of time?
Yeah, you're out of time.
Oh, bye then.
Christian, do you have any clarifying questions?
Just so can we go back to the slide with the open source structure? Yeah, this one exactly, open source elements. Yeah, but no, that just wanted to have another glimpse of it, but no questions.
Thank you.
I guess, Mihir, we have 2 minutes. So if you can quickly explain what you're going to do.
Right. I will be speaking about the technical feasibility of the project. So since it's a graphic visual, as a graph-based network-based visualization, we're thinking of using a graph database for the backend, such as Neo4j is an example. But we still have to do more research here, and we're also thinking of other ways to structure our backend so it's sustainable and scalable. In terms of the visualization, we're thinking of using a JavaScript library like Sigma.js or Viz.js or D3.js are a few options. We have to go through the specificities to see, keeping in mind the requirements of the project. And when it comes to low accessibility in terms of like phones that can't power such intensive libraries, we're also thinking of a more accessible solution to visualize this data there. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
You're muted.
Ma'am, you're muted.
Yeah. Did you say that the community is able to access? You said low bandwidth and the community has access to the internet and things like that, right? Like, since it's so community driven, how is?
Internet connection is available in the
Yes,
Sundarbans,
like
thankfully.
most houses have a smartphone, have at least one smartphone.
One smartphone.
And we are trying to kind of crowdsource more for them, yes.
And also, help them use this, facilitate them how to use this, navigate the spaces.
So this will be more a mobile-based platform.
We want it to be as accessible as possible. So yes. I mean, it will have a website as well, like a desktop version, but we want to really build the suited for mobile access.
Because light on the data, because they won't.
Yeah, our main like the people we work with do not have access to higher end technologies at this point.
Thank you, Delta Lives. We will move on to Meow.
Hi, hi again. Good evening. My name is Shreyans, and I'm here to present our project called Meow, and I'm collaborating with Khoka and Hemant. So I'll just get down right to it. After many weeks of bashing our heads together to figure out what intersection between our interests is the best, we felt like what would work best within our interest is to initiate a participatory systems design exercise, wherein we tie up with various individuals from across a diverse spectrum to co-create a archive of diverse anonymous voices, which might constitute unspoken memories and personal stories using personal objects and events as a trigger. At the end of this, we hope to create a semantic map of signifiers which will vary the across geography and individual profiles such as like mental health and like sexuality and the gender spectrum and disability and other spectra. So why do we want to do this? We when we first started talking about this, we were thinking about social media platforms and how they exist to create value by commoditizing its users' personal spaces, identities, and narratives. And these policies serve to empower a global advertising network instead of empowering users by creating spaces for authenticity. This also has an impact on the nature of public discourse in terms of what is considered permissible in an increasingly polarized world. And this we feel is resulting in an increase in self-censorship and corresponding rise in mental health issues amongst its user base. So why are we looking at anonymized auditory archives? Through When we look at an auditory archive, we aim to create virtual spaces that hold stories from diverse experiences together. Because it is auditory, we hope that it minimizes some of the biases and prejudices of a more visual social media platform, such as identity. For example, a user might be a Muslim, or they might identify on in as an abstract gender or whatever sexuality platform, and in a visual medium that might color our perception before we are even ready to listen to what it is that they have to say. And we are hoping that when we create an anonymized auditory archive, we can facilitate a more open-minded exchange of stories, and thus sort of present an embodied experience into the various experiences that people across all sorts of socio-economic strata have to offer. Um, we believe that each of us has something of importance to offer by the virtue of the experiences afforded by one's station in life. And over time, we hope to initiate an evolving toolkit for listening practices and networks that enable healing and recovery in the self and society as a whole. Um, so coming to open source access, what will be open sourced? Of course, the data and the process, including what went wrong, because we believe that that is equally important information when it comes to duplicating these kind of networks across different areas. And this will also be a part of the evolving toolkit, and of course the source codes and stories with participant permission. Who might benefit from such a database? The participants themselves, by virtue of just having a space to tell their stories. Artists who might want to look into these stories to research. Historians, sociologists, anthropologists. The possibilities are quite vast. Open source legals, like we are open to investigating the right licensing frameworks, but we feel it's a little too premature at this stage to come to one particular licensing framework. Um, About the financials, the repositories and services will be available free of charge to private individuals, and institutional access might be granted on making a donation, and folks for commercial use might be another option to monetize this. What are our civil society concerns? We hope this exercise sets into a motion of co-creative systems design in society, and where the participants are active contributors to the design process. And this is really more like a long-term view, and we're thinking that possible benefit of such kind of systems design might be applied to to areas such as governance and policy making, judiciary, education, food production, etc. Um, how much time to proto, like there are still a lot of unknowns, so this is more like a rough timeline. So we're thinking that we'll conduct a set of interactions and workshops both online and physical from January to March of 2022. And once we have the data from the anonymized stories through these interactions, we'll start populating a semantic map of signifiers. At the same time, in parallel, from January to September, we'll be looking into frameworks. One of the software that we'll be using is Pure Data, and and there might be others that we look into. Um, Budget. So we have calculated this according to the amount that will be needed. Okay.
Marsha, you have a question? Oh.
For sure. Yeah, I can ask it if that's okay. Thank you very much for your really interesting proposal. It's really fascinating. I'm wondering about moderation, whether or not the forums or the contributions will be moderated. I'm also wondering about monetization, who will take those decisions. And so in some ways we can locate this under a broader question around governance. How will this platform be self-organized and self-governed, or are you envisioning a different approach? Thank you.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, that we envision this to be a co-creative process. So at this point in time, we are thinking of a process that will emerge organically as we go into the process. But of course, like if that feels a little too ambiguous, as we move into the project, then we can always take reins of the governance if we find that there are major safeguarding issues, which I assume there will be at some point in time.
Christian?
Yeah, I was looking for the microphone button. Do I understand right that actually this is more of a data gathering project and less of a engineering project? There's nothing bad with that. Mm-hmm. It's just that it feels like, I mean, the things that you presented are interesting ideas and there is, I think, a lot of data to collect on that. But I think it's difficult to do both at the same time in terms of like technically building a platform and collecting at the same time a lot of data. And I feel like maybe so maybe you can clarify about that, whether or not it's, I think it's more about data gathering. Am I right?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, at this stage, we are focusing more on the data gathering aspect of it because we feel that might be realistically more feasible and viable. But we wanted to specify that we have some ideas in terms of what might then proceed from the data gathering exercise. That we are looking into generative auditory networks, or maybe some sort of a community operated spatial radio service, so that these service may be so that these stories may be heard. But again, we like these are just ideas at this point in time. We need to like look into what is the most effective way of sharing these stories in collaboration with the users, rather than enforce our ideas onto them.
And quickly, may I ask, who would your users be? Like you said, like a lot of participants, but the scope seems really wide. So who will you start with?
Um, That's a good question. We are initially looking at a diversity matrix wherein we can at least from a place of ideal start with maybe a few representative voices from different parts of society, and look at how these stories and how these stories and these voices interact with each other. So it is more like a pilot project to see if it is possible to look at creation of anonymized networks which don't necessarily coalesce into some sort of an echo chamber, as seems to happen with most algorithm driven legacy social media networks. So
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Now, who was next? House of Dreams, Chanderhat.
Hello. We are from Jaaga. Jaaga is an artist collective, and my name is Pradeep Das. Good evening. I am Monica Das. I'm Dipanjan. So, actually,
I think you might have to be closer to the computer because we're hearing you a little muffled. If you are going to talk.
actually, this is more of a artistic project that is around a particular space driven, like most of our work. So Chadirhat is, we are from Chadirhat, a community-driven arts organization that is based in Kolkata, India. We live here and for 30 years now, it is the space we dream to transform one day by art. But always we did not realize at first. In 2016, while working on Derives from the Metropolis, a project in which we engaged our neighborhood in simple artistic production, due to the participatory nature of the work, suddenly we found that we were unraveling multiple and contesting layers of history of the people living here. While we were doing this Shoshuna Theke Jana project in Chanderhat, we figured out that it was not only necessary that we produce our work, but in that production, we started to see that if locals came in and worked with us, they developed quite interesting different kinds of artistic pieces themselves, which told stories of their living here, the way they came here, the way they started their life, the different cultural milieu that they brought in. Suddenly, we were addressing through these artworks global concerns like loss of biodiversity, destruction of habitats, and migration in our backyard. It seems we had the key to larger concerns that we never felt that we could hear much from here in where we live. Our worlds had been destroyed so many times over, but we had never felt it. Suddenly, in a moment of understanding of our common loss, we, the residents of the locality, felt as one. Since then, we have been expanding the ideas and processes of the involvement of the community and its empowerment that evolved from Derives project. In 2019, we did Neighborhoods, a pan-Asian arts residency and exhibition based on the theme of neighborhood itself and inspired from it. Further, just before the pandemic in 2020, we did White Kids. Now, we were taking our work to the villages in Bengal. We were asking them to come. We invited a lot of friends from different countries around us to come here and produce with the locals. And these kind of projects, sooner or later, we started to believe that the community participation is generating a lot of enthusiasm in Shoshuna. Right now, we are focusing on one particular house in our neighborhood, an impermanent structure that is home to 10 migrant families. There are some visuals of that. We have noticed that people of different ethnic, cultural, and social backgrounds come and nest in this house for a few months, and then they leave and new ones arrive. Their faces are as different as their sorrows are, but there is one thing that is common to all of them. This was very kind of startling thing that we found, that all of these people, they were engrossed with the idea of belonging somewhere, a home which once was theirs, now only an obsessive dream kind of thing. In this program, we want to develop artistic processes of diving deep into their inner lives, the lives of their children, their old folk, gathering stories of their past lives, their present anxieties, to understand we who have never been homeless, we have never been homeless, but what a home is, therefore perhaps we do not know. We might get to know what a home is. We who have never felt alienated, how to belong to this world, we perhaps never learned, perhaps we could learn from them. And all this to create an archive of the history of hope and happiness around this world that slowly is slipping from our fingers. One of our major challenges this season is to break the insider-outsider divide among the residents of our locality and the termites. In our country, the migrants are nowadays being termed as Ghuspetias, termites, as they're famously being termed by this ruling dispensation. We want to break this insider-outsider divide and to reintegrate them within the cultural universe that we call our own. In this House of Dreams project as well, we will be involving our immediate neighborhood in living, loving, and making art by using different media and ways of engagement in co-creating, like organic farming. We have to learn from them how they farm, how they have lived, painting their surroundings in the types of colors that they would love to, in creation of magazines, music, and theater.
You're out of
Finally,
time.
excuse me.
You're out of time, sorry.
So these processes we would like to share by a CC by SA 4.0 license with the Delta Lives, Pita and Bonamala's workshop. So they will be working with us, and we will be using curated photo essays and video documentation to showcase our work.
Christian, any questions?
The same. I mean, it's the same question that before. This is would be like an open source documentary work, right?
It's kind of that. With actually process how we would like to also in that documentation, we would like to show the different processes that they bring in when they come. The way they produce, that is completely different from the way we produce or we consume nowadays. So that would be what we would like to document through this.
Okay, thank you.
And location-wise, you're saying it's going to be this one community, one village community?
One cluster. It's
Yes.
a small migrant cluster in which 10 families stay. Around, they come, new ones arrive, old ones go away in 3-4 months. Again, a fresh batch arrives. Maybe 2 of them stay back, maybe 5 of them leave. It's kind of that kind of a journey which happens back and forth. And we document the way this whole cycle of life goes on.
Sorry. Great, thank you so much. We'll move on to outside your stories.
Of course, and we also try to bring in, we try to motivate the surroundings that is around this cluster to negotiate their presence in a more human way. You know, it's not that they are outsiders and we are people of the locality, we are insiders. This divide has to be broken at present. And this walls have started to emerge within societies. So we believe that art can do that.
Nice. And that's a good end to bringing an inside out. Sorry, did I say that wrong? In outside your stories.
So
Thank you.
Hi, just to note that my internet is really unstable. So if I get stuck, then message me or something so that I don't just go on. Thank you for your time. My name is Vinu. I'm a dancer, performance artist, facilitator, lawyer based in Bangalore. I will be leading this project in which we will be looking at ways, safe ways to articulate messy personal stories. Doing this along with Preeta and Mir. I'll let them introduce themselves and their roles before I move forward with the project.
Hi, as you know, I am a movement and visual artist with a background in behavioral ecology. I draw from pedagogical and movement therapy approaches to research methods of accessibility and equity in community engagement. I feel there is a dearth of investment into facilitation of safe verbal and nonverbal dialogue. And this project will be useful for people like me who engage with communities in safe spaces with an aim to really know them. And in this process, I am researching a framework to contextualize Vinu's method across diverse communities. And I'll pass this over to Mihir.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, yeah, my name is Mihir. I'm a self-taught programmer and an advocate of self-directed learning. The reason I'm interested in this project is because in a world where we're tackling big systemic problems, we often don't have time, or we don't focus on an individual human and their stories, and give the time and space for them to express. So that's why I wanted to be a part of this project, and I will be helping technically. Thank you.
Thank you, Mir and Preeta. Exactly as Mir said, this idea emerged from lots of professional and personal engagements that were really either adversarial or transactional. And we live in such a polarized, scary world, and there isn't time for complexity and curiosity. And there's a real need to be silly and explore yourself in community, in messy ways, so that you don't feel isolated and inflexible among people or by yourself. So this project is to develop an accessible, adaptable, open source resource process that would facilitate this sort of deep listening. So we have a culture around that where we're curious about each other and empathetic without leaping to judgment or action or any sort of purpose outside of just knowing complexly how people exist. We're looking at balancing safety from confidentiality and moving to safety in articulation and outward sharing. We want to center individual stories, but also, like Neej said, we live in a really scary world. So accounting for that in our processes. We've developed a working process from Preeta's extensive knowledge of many artistic engagement that she's in, movement therapy, both of our community engagement and facilitation experiences. I do playback theater and listening as, which are community forms of theater and engagement where we do deep listening. And we have a working process which we want to build on. And we want to refine this within this C3 cocoon for about 4 months through engaging with multiple groups. Using this process, some of the communities that Preeta has engaged with, a lot of my collaborators outside who are engaged with deep listening and facilitation of in various disciplines of their own. And we're looking to have this be adaptable across timescales and relevant across contexts as much as we can. And to have it be simplified to core principles, because the essence is that we want a fluid process that moves with the people in the room. So we want it to be a springboard rather than a straitjacket or syllabus. And we want this to be shared openly for anybody to use and adapt on a platform that Mir will create. And we want the stories to be shared as people feel comfortable, so that there is a representation of this sort of complexity and messiness. We have a plan for 1 year where we engage with progressively broader communities and diverse communities. And ultimately, the hope is that it actually becomes open source. And as we broaden our engagement, that it goes to people and places that we do not have access to, and we do not know, and people are using it and contributing to this online platform and process in their own ways. And none of this sort of richness would come if it wasn't open source. So the code and the process, we want them to remain open source, free to use and adapt, even commercialize, but not copyright at any point of time. We want it to be available in multiple languages and formats, facilitate physical and online spaces. And to facilitate the safety, we want it to be confidential in the sharing circles, and then you have complete agency and control over your stories. And hopefully collaborations in kind and cross subsidies across institutional engagements can facilitate community engagements and further spread. That's our vision for a year, but 4 months within the C3 process. Thank you so much for your time. That's us.
Thank you.
And shall I stop share so that we've all
Was this also an audio-based collection? Did I miss?
No, we're looking at people being able to articulate their stories in whatever languages and formats they feel like. So the process will start with verbal, but we've done a couple of dry runs between people here. So we're looking at movement, journaling, doodling, whatever is your mode of expression, finding comfort in that, finding a story that you would like to share, but you don't know how, and then working through it, putting it out. So the listening is also for the larger audience who finally gets it. So the listening is also to be patient and view it in ways and languages that you may not understand, and just leave it there without trying to pin down a purpose to anything in particular. I think Masha had a question. I would love to hear.
Sure, I'll make this snappy. Thank you. Another really fascinating project. My concern as a practice-based researcher is that when people talk to you and they share their stories, you have a kind of duty of care. Sometimes they tell you things you really don't want to hear because it results in you being implicated in their lives. And I'm just wondering how you're going to manage that mess.
Right. So I do have experience with processes. So the playback theater, I've been doing it for about 2 years now, which is where we get we take stories directly from the audience and we play them back. And I'm a big believer in you play the story back, you hold the space. And confidentiality really helps with that, because in playback, we say that you can take back your learnings, you can take back your feelings, but you don't become friends with a person just because they shared with you within a certain structure. You don't become friends with, say your therapist is not your best friend, right? It's a service and a process that you're engaging in for yourself, which might lead to personal connections, but isn't. So this will be at one of the core ethics that we're trying to make as flexible and simple as possible, so you can keep coming back to it and move it around and play with it, but have it stay safe. That's what we really want to look at in a room where people don't have complete, like the people we've worked with is a lot of people who are already really open and are already willing to be really safe and draw boundaries. So how do we translate that will be a big part of our exploration. Thank you so much for the question, Marsha. That was great.
Christian, any question from you before we move on?
No, that's not out of disinterest, but just I got it, so I have no questions. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Muted myself. And we have the restoration toolbox.
Yes, I'm just going to share my screen. So yes, so the Restoration Toolbox is an open source platform that brings together communities to preserve their heritage. Now, heritage is something that is all around us. It may have different visual identities, but they all impact how we live our lives in an everyday basis. Most of us in Indian cities are very familiar with this kind of a scenario where heritage is and isn't all around us. And it's not very difficult to find the heritage buildings crumbling almost everywhere. And most of them are neglected, or people are forced to replace them with nondescript buildings that have no value. As a result of which, our Indian cities, which were really very articulate in a particular identity, is losing their essence really, really fast. We know that there has been enough research to say that preserving buildings and reusing them is a way forward for achieving sustainability. And the European Green Deal in 2020 has called a call to action for renovating existing buildings. And there is a new legislation for right to repair to say that as we move ahead, repairing and restoring is a way forward for achieving sustainability. Our project is called the Restoration Toolbox, and it is a platform that connects local communities with custodians, craftsmen, practitioners, all through a participatory process. So the whole idea is to help people, empower them to save and protect as well as restore their own heritage. So the Restoration Toolbox, as we have envisioned it, is actually it brings together 4 different things. The first one is technical assistance to anyone who wants to restore a building. Second is open source resource library that is co-created by practitioners and young people and technical experts. The third is the possibility of creating bottom-up campaigns where people who are interested can come together, people, funders, civic authorities, as well as practitioners can come together to save a particular building. And the fourth is a buildings on risk register where anyone can actually put up a building that they know is derelict and can find a new use. So where our resource is essentially going to help different kinds of people, whether they are decision makers like city authorities, citizens organizations, NGOs, practitioners, and craftsmen come together in different ways. Now, I've had conversations with almost everybody at different points, and I will be the project lead, and I have about 20 years of experience in actually restoring buildings on ground. And my job really is the content creation and helping with the website framework and UI UX design. But I really joined the C3 framework to have a different perspective and bring together other people. And so Manan and me have been very kind to suggest helping out with the website as well as the coding side of this platform. And Purnima and I have discussed how we have similar ideologies and how we can both come together to talk about the content. As far as open source is concerned, we want to build this platform on existing open source codes such as Presidium, which has been a participatory planning code that has been made a few years ago, and I think it's really, really nice and successful. And I think it's a good place to start, although we may end up somewhere else. And again, the open source for us is open source to technical information for anyone in India where there is no access to a trained technical person or an architect. And we would like to give out this technical information through the Creative Commons license. even the resource library that we are creating is with citizens and practitioners. And eventually, I think the whole idea is to help people find their people, or the right kind of flock to help come together and save buildings, something that doesn't exist at the moment. And we have to rely on our own personal networks to be able to do that. So our whole idea is to make heritage accessible to people and make technical information accessible to people in a very easy way. What we have achieved so far is we have tried to create a pilot for the resource library with volunteers and young people, and it's already placed on our website. The initial idea was also selected as part of the SDG cards as an innovative way to achieve sustainability in March 2021. And we were able to showcase the idea also at a symposium part of the COP 2020 on tales of care and repair. So we would really like this opportunity to take this entire year to build something. We have a lot of data collected. We have access to a lot of resources. In terms of the technical aspect, we would really like to take this opportunity to build on it from the coding perspective and put a product out there that can help essentially city authorities and owners and custodians of heritage buildings who don't have access to this kind of information as of now. That's it.
Thank you, Aishwarya. I hope that was your last slide.
Yes, it was.
Great. Yeah, no words. Christian, words?
No, it's, I mean, yeah, there's nothing to, it's very clear. But I like it.
Oh, thank you.
Great. So maybe we can move on to the next person, next group, sorry. The unspoken pain.
Hello, I am, can you hear us? So I'm Tahia and she is Farzana. So our project name is Unspoken Pain, and it's we're gonna talk through the project if it's okay. So our project is about the impact of climate change to women and girls in rural areas. Because of the taboo of to talk about certain biological aspects, oftentimes the women don't have access to information as well as hygiene products. So we are going to do a project on the women in the rural areas where they have, we're going to ask them questions. It's going to be a research-based project, and also we're going to do a workshop in schools to young girls about building awareness of hygiene products because of climate change. And this is our project.
Yeah, like mostly we want to do science book type online source, like where people easily can access different people who work on climate change areas, also researchers, like many young people are working in our country on climate change issues, but most people don't know about them, right? So we want to create a platform where people can easily access them. Also, we can build awareness about women issues in rural areas. You want to add something? Is it clear?
You're saying you want to work with people who take this to the rural areas. So
Exactly.
working with the girls in the rural areas directly, but the community workers who work with them. Is that
Exactly, exactly.
So the target is also maybe to complete and precise already existing information online. I mean, you said that that it's also about making like this kind of knowledge available. Is that, I mean, I don't know, that's why I'm asking, is that knowledge not available at all, or is it just not precise enough?
There are knowledge available, but mostly in the cities and not in rural areas. So there, due to like hygiene products, unavailability due to hygiene products, girls and women go through many diseases. So there are ways of sustainable hygiene that can be taught to these young girls, and we will connect the organization and we'll do a workshop in the schools, as well as we'll go to the women in these rural areas and ask them and take and do documentary on them regarding what impacts they had due to climate change, because they had to migrate, and there are like there are um, uh, uh, there are like less of like access to hospitals, as well as access to washrooms and hygiene products, and they are not getting treatment, and sometimes the treatment is just a it's just a recyclable pad that can be made with clothes as well. So some information that we can give them, as well as doing a documentary.
and which
So
part of
we
rural
will be,
areas?
sorry, we will be a platform. We will make a platform where
She asked which rural area. We'll first do it in Khulna, in
Khulna division of Bangladesh.
Yes.
Bangladesh. Okay.
Which is more affected climate change areas.
Sorry, you were going to say platform?
Yeah. So we want to make a platform where like those organizations who work for these activities, they can connect those people who are the sufferers of this climate change and these women related issues actually. Because in rural areas, they cannot have access internet or anything. So we want to create a platform so they also can get proper help from these organizations who actually want to work on these issues.
She's from Khulna, so
Yes.
it's her home district. So it's it will be easier for us to get access to schools, as well as the women who are getting migrated from their homes in that area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have Barnamala who's trying to connect with you. So please connect with her beyond this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go on to Mihir's threads.
Hi. Okay. Whoops. I am sharing. Hi. Is Rabia here? And Sujay? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're in the other room. I'm just gonna text her if I can just quickly. Okay, I guess she might not be able to make it. Okay. When can I start?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay. Hello, my name is Mihir Katpalia and my project is called Threads. Threads is a digital archive of events with social significance. Let me give you a bit of the background and the reason I decided to start this project. India has been through a lot in these past 2 years, beginning with the CAA protests in 2019, followed by the global COVID-19 pandemic, wherein we witnessed the migrant laborers crisis and the oxygen crisis, leading up to the current farmers' protests. We have all heard about these events and read about them in isolation, one article, one post, one picture, or one interview at a time. However, looking at these events in isolated news stories, we might not realize the weight and scale of these events. The idea with Threads is to create a repository of information about these events so that we can see the entire picture. This repository would serve as evidence of the seriousness of these issues to ultimately hold ourselves and our representatives accountable. It would help us not forget as time passes on to remember and honor what transpired. Additionally, it would help us, the people, stay informed and up to date on the events, up to date on the news that actually matters in all the noise. Our first step will be to select a singular or at most 2 to 3 archives to work on during the duration of C3, depending on the number of collaborators. The archive to begin with will be created solely by the collaborators in the medium of their choice. It will be the collaboration team's responsibility to verify sources like a journalist or a responsible citizen would. Future plans include opening it up to the general public, promoting citizen journalism and first-person accounts. The archives would still be moderated by the team of collaborators responsible for them. Gradually, we would like to move towards a model of obtaining our material directly from the source rather than solely rely on the works of others. Currently, we're a team of 3 collaborators, myself, Rabia, and Sujay, who will be introducing themselves now. Rabia, are you here? I think Rabia is not here. Maybe she can join us at the end. Sujay?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Sujay, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm an artist, a printmaker by practice, and the main area of interaction that I'm looking towards is looking for a sonic feedback system for this archive, and kind of, using the sense of anonymity as a way to, talk about them, bring it into open, and see and also safeguard the ones who will be working with us as a community and giving us informations about that.
Thank you, Sujay. I will now talk about my role in the project and the digital platform a bit more. I am a software developer. It will be my responsibility to develop the digital platform. Additionally, I will also be conducting research and or assisting with research on one or more of the events that we decide to cover. The digital platform itself will consist of 3 parts: an open source database, a publicly available API or application programming interface to allow anyone to query the database, and a web client to visualize the data, which will essentially be the archives. The source code and all the data will be publicly available. That's our presentation. Thank you for listening.
And so you will initially rely on journalistic pieces that are already accessible?
Yeah, the works of others, journalists definitely, and other platforms, other databases, other archives, and other individuals. Yeah.
So it'll just be a link out. So it's almost just, I imagine it as a collection of a whole bunch of things that you will point me out to, right?
Right. So it's a repository of all the information. So yes, it'll be a large collection of all the links of all the information we have, and every single archive within the article within the archive will have pictorial, visual, satirical, or just summaries of them, like representations of all the information we have from that particular date in an archive, let's say. So we have like 10 links here, and then we write about it, we visually represent it. So that's where the art and expression comes into play.
And you're frameworking it with time. You're saying 2 years ago to now, you're going to kind of trudge and pull this together, right?
Right. So there's two kinds of archives. There'll be a chronological one, like you said, like Farmers Protest, CA protests. And then there'll also an encyclopedia kind of archive where we're covering, let's say, the Digital India initiative. So these are the two kinds of archives.
Christian, any questions?
Oh, no questions for myself.
And you said you would verify sources.
Mm-hmm.
What would that process of verification look like?
That's a good question. I do not have a formalized process. However, it will be based on what I termed as a responsible citizen. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Pooja is calling.
All right, just a second. Let me share my screen. Hello, everyone. I am Hassan, a creative technologist and educator. Our project is called Pooja is Calling. We are trying to raise awareness about digital frauds and scam through immersive experiences and music. We have 3 collaborators as of now: Radha, who is a musician, and a DJ, an artist, Ujasvi, who will introduce herself at the end. And I'm Hassan. So the idea of the project started when I met a girl on Tinder recently, and we matched. Her name was Pooja, and immediately after matching, she mentioned that I don't use Tinder very often. Can you message me on WhatsApp? Which is fair, and I took her number and I did message her on WhatsApp, and I just said, "Hey, how are you doing? Hassan here." And she messaged back with "Hi dear," with the dear spelling being a little different than what I'm used to. So that's fine. We did a bit of chit chat, and after that, I received this message, which says only video calling face to face. And that's a little concerning. So I said, sorry, I don't do that. Usually it's random people. And after that, I thought it might just end here, but I received an hi the next day and a video call and another and a bunch more. And at this point, it's getting annoying, but it's 10 in the night and I'm just repeatedly getting video calls. And then I received this message. It says, go to bathroom, show your penis, full open body. And at this point, I am a little concerned at what's actually going on. I finally, I keep getting video calls till 11 in the night. And now I'm finishing my day. I'm a little too annoyed. And I call back to Pooja just to see what the hell is going on. And this is what I see. Now, I'm trying to understand what's actually going on in the start. And then I see Pooja appearing and she is doing her thing. I'm saying hi, hello, what's up? And there is no response. It says Pooja muted this call. And while looking at this video, I realized something, that I can see pixels in her image. And in the process, I realized that it's actually a person playing a video on a phone, and there is another phone which is showing me the video. And it's not actually a real person. And through some research, I figure out that basically it is a scam which is being widely run in my area, where they call up people who are not very technically savvy, and they ask them to show themselves on video, and they record the video and then send them the video back asking for money, that this is an account number, send me the money, otherwise I will upload this video to the internet with you doing all this shit and it will go viral tomorrow. And these are people who are daily wage workers. These are people who are not very well educated, who do menial jobs. Now, what we are proposing after this experience is to create an online open source AI powered sandbox experience where people can actually go and experience these kind of scams in the local languages, so they know what is going on, and when the real thing hits them, they know how to behave and how to handle it. We are also working with music. So Radha is a musician, and we are working to create jingles, catchy tracks to basically narrate this whole idea of digital scams. We already have a track in making. And for the future possibilities, I would call Ojasvi.
Hi everyone. I'm Ojasvi. I'm a prototyper with an interest in design, technology, and human behavior. And I'll walk you guys through the future possibilities of Pooja's calling. Now, as Hassan mentioned, there's a whole generation, multiple generations of people leapfrogging through the digital development era. They don't really have an understanding of how to move or like navigate this environment. We are looking at multiple formats on how we can engage with them. So one is transferring the format of the immersive experience to different scams, different awareness modules, so that it's sustainable for a whole variety of its experiences. Now another is inviting collaborators and developers to co-create, in the spirit of open source, these experiences in a safer playground-ish environment. Think open playground, open AI playground. And then we have, as Hassan mentioned, building vernacular support in regional languages, so that it's not alienating for people who do not have access to these languages. And finally, we are looking at developing algorithmic frameworks to automate the user flow, in making this decision-making process a little, easier for newer developers. So think of, NLP, NLU, syntactic analysis, speech acts. These are some of the technical elements we would be implementing here. And obviously, to build mental health resources, that's the final one, to make sure that people who are going through this, it's not traumatizing to them, and they know how to, go through this experience without having lasting scars. Yeah, that's most of what we're trying to do here.
All right.
So the idea is that actually people can experience the scam to realize it's a scam, right?
Yeah, so basically, I have been working extensively on the last 2 years with chatbots, AI-powered chatbots, and I realized that this can be used to create these kind of experiences where we train chatbots to kind of recreate these kind of interactions.
So, but then one question arises: how do you, if it's a very good simulation, how do you make sure that nobody actually thinks it's the scam and gets scammed by your scam simulation?
Yeah, I think we will just put up signs about that hey, this is a safe environment, feel free to experience the whole thing. And then after this, like this is and again, this particular thing is so widespread right now that as we speak, this is probably happening to hundreds of people right now. So basically just sharing about this information, that this is the scope of this fraud, and in this particular area this is happening, and what are the local news says about it. There are a few people who are being arrested actually in the last week, and so this is something which is time sensitive as well.
Yeah, and as Hassan mentioned in the past, we are building those musical jingles purely for throwback to people, to like when propaganda or like these sort of elements were there to get people to accustom themselves to what to expect from an experience. So,
and this sounds like a hyper local initiative in a weird way. Is
yeah,
it?
I mean, In the starting, we are starting with this particular scam, which to create this platform and to realize the idea. And once the platform is ready, it can be translated to other geographies and others. So, for example, you must be aware of the tax scam that happens in the US and the West mostly, where people call up asking for tax money and then they transfer money. So then you can basically simulate all of these different scams in multiple languages through this kind of a platform and then take it internationally.
And so the bulk of your research will be actively seeking scams like this, right? So how will you go about finding these scams? This
You look into news.
Sorry?
Yeah, so basically there are two ways to do it. One is the news channels and the news sources, that what is actually happening in the digital fraud space. Second, since I have a security background in computer hacking, we have forums where this kind of information is shared privately as well. So these are the two sources I'll be looking into mostly.
And from a future progression angle, what we're looking at is making sure that it's like it's open to open source developers, so that they can also like push their like whatever version of their scam that they know of onto this, so they can build a similar tutorial or like a walkthrough experience for these.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just share a slightly related story, 1 minute. There is about scam detection with AI. German financial services, so the German IRS, wanted to detect fraud in tax fraud by scanning the documents you submit. And it turns out at some point they were hitting a lot of frauds, and they didn't find an error. And it turned out that like the training data for that AI only included faulty documents, and actually the AI had never seen a fully correct tax declaration and was highly confused and thought it was fraudulent. So yeah, I mean, interesting aspect, but one has to be very careful about how it is trained, and that actually people actually at the end are not scared to talk because they think that everything might be a fraud. But I feel it's a good start. So just sharing the fun story.
Thank you, Prashant.
All right. That, I think, brings us to the end of this session. Has anybody gone over to the other room and come back? Are they still talking?
There are a lot of people in the room, so I assume.
There are a lot of people in the room. And a lot from here are running to the other room quickly.
Yeah. Jumping ships.
Yeah. Which is good. I think, yeah, we will just go back to, you can just come back to the main room and we'll wait for the others and close this session.
All right.